All right, the 2022 Toyota Corolla, the SE with the manual transmission. And I hope you like Corollas because this is the third Corolla review on my channel. I tested the 2019 hatchback and the 2020 sedan as well with the CVT. And now we're here for 2022 with this manual transmission, and you would be surprised, there are some legitimate changes here. Yeah, it might look the same since 2019, but Toyota has genuinely made some improvements, and I'll try my best to illustrate those changes to you in this review. So let's get started. I won't lie to you, initially, I was about to get ready to roast this vehicle because, well, we have things like the new Honda Civic and the Mazda 3, which are genuinely not only excellent vehicles, but in my opinion, and in most people's opinions, class-leading automobiles. And I just thought that with my prior experience with the Corolla, that it would not be class competitive. We'll get to that a little bit later in this review, but first of all, yeah, like I was saying, I didn't think that this would be very class competitive due to my previous experience with this car, but they made changes, and I do genuinely now think there's a reason to purchase the Corolla. Even amongst the thick competition that this faces, I think that this has a place in the market. And over the past few days, really a week that I've spent time with this press car, I've really enjoyed it. More than I thought I would. So let's first of all talk about what's new for 2022 and the looks of it. All right, there's not a whole lot of changes, but you do get that Apex Edition and the Night Edition, which is a blackout package more or less. But the Apex Edition genuinely is different. It gets lowered by 0.6 inches, gets flow-formed wheels, and stiffer suspension, even more so than the SE models like you see here, the SE and the XSE. These are both kind of the performance models, right? Still has the same 2-liter four-cylinder engine in the Apex model, producing 169 horsepower and 151 pounds-feet of torque. That's what this vehicle also has. And also you get a kind of sport-tuned exhaust with the Apex model as well. So there you go. But me personally, I do think that this SE model is the way to go. I think this is the most cost-effective. I don't really see the point in paying a lot of money for a Corolla product. This for around $23,000, $24,000 with Destination is the way to go. And yes, I would also go for this manual transmission, which I'll talk about during the drive. And with the SE, it just looks amazing because you get these 18-inch wheels wrapped in 225 wide tires. So yeah, spicy looking compact, but you let me know in the comment section how you like the way that this vehicle looks. Let's go ahead and let's transition over into this driving segment now. Let's talk about the first change that I really appreciate, and that is this engine. Yes, this is the 2-liter 4-cylinder with the updated power. You can also get a more efficiently tuned 1.8-liter 4-cylinder that produces like 139 horsepower and 126 pounds-feet of torque. I would absolutely avoid that and get this SE model with this 2-liter, like I mentioned before, producing 169 horsepower and 151 pounds-feet of torque. This vehicle weighs about 3,000 pounds. This isn't super loud like it was in the previous generation or the previous model years of the Corollas that I tested. Dude, this thing used to make an absolute racket. Now, it's much quieter. You get the right amount of engine noise coming out of this. This isn't super obnoxious or anything like that. You can daily drive this, and I am so happy Toyota addressed this, because that was really my biggest complaint with the previous model years, the 2020 and the 2019 I tested. And is it quick? Of course not, which is why I need to have at least this 2-liter engine, but it's not bad when you get it with the manual transmission. The CVT isn't a bad transmission. It's pretty good as far as CVTs are concerned because I think it has a physical first gear to make your initial start a little bit smoother and quicker. And I think overall, Toyota quotes that the CVT is about 20% quicker than the conventional CVT transmission. So there's that. But this manual transmission makes it so much more fun. And in fact, I think this manual transmission feels a little bit more superior to the 6-speed manual I tested in the 2019 Corolla Hatch. There are times like when I'm at a stop and I try to put into first gear to get up and move, it kind of feels a little vague to me. I'm not really sure if I did put into first gear or not, but that's not really a big deal. As a whole, when you're up and moving, this feels fantastic to use this manual transmission. It's a great combination with this 4-cylinder. Other things, it's not crazy loud in here. Refinement is something I feel like they really focused in on for this 2022 model year Corolla, because the engine's quieter and the overall vehicle is quieter. Yes, I admit things like the Civic and the Mazda 3s are definitely quieter vehicles, but don't look at that as a con for this Corolla, because this lets in the correct amount of wind noise, engine noise, and tire noises, right? Just enough so you feel connected to it. And that's why I believe there's still a reason to consider this car in 2022. There's something liberating about the way that this car feels. In fact, it feels more like a old school car with some new age refinements made to it. And if you know what I mean by that, then I think you will really appreciate this car if you're looking for a vehicle that actually has some soul and some character to it. Because what happens is when you go the Mazda 3 route or even the new Civic route, they feel a little bit more European than anything else. And because of that, they feel a little bit more sterile, and you don't feel... They're fantastic cars, amazing chassis, great handling, but you just don't feel quite as connected like you do with this Corolla. There's a sense of pleasure to be had here. And also there's the typical reliability things that people like to say. Yeah, of course, that's here. And most importantly, that matters for somebody who's trying to look into this and buy it used down the road, like 3 to 5 years from now. This is going to be one of the few reliable cars out there in the market, because this is a port injected and a direct injected motor for the 2-liter engines, and the overall failure rates on a Toyota product is definitely less than any other brand. So that's a good thing, I suppose. But most importantly, from a driving standpoint, this still handles just fine. All right, because this is the SE model, you do get a sport tune suspension over the regular models, but it's not a ride quality that's going to beat you up, because they're pretty smart. They included like a jounce bumper implemented into the suspension, so you get the best of both worlds. You get a great handling suspension without beating you up. It still has a compliant and comfortable ride, even with these 18-inch wheels, which is one of the largest wheels that you can get for the Corolla. On the base models, you can definitely get 15-inch wheels and even a 16-inch alloy wheel, which would ride like absolute butter, but don't worry about that. Get these 18s and you're going to be just fine with it, which is another huge reason for recommending the SE, because you do get the handling. It feels a lot more neutral to drive, and it's not sloppy in any way. And of course, it's a huge improvement over the previous generation Corollas. This has a much more planted driving demeanor to it. And even at the highway speeds, it's pretty damn stable. Anything under 90 miles an hour, you're going to be really pleased with it. And it's even been a very windy day, and it's still coping extremely well. Now, at those speeds, you will get some more wind buffeting effect and things like that, but that's pretty natural for a vehicle like this. And again, it's not annoying. It's enough noises and feedback to let you know what's going on with the environment around you, so you feel connected to it. Other things to note, this manual transmission, super easy to operate. And yeah, I did say that this is superior feeling than the previous model years that I tested, like the 2019s, and that could just be my head playing games with me, I don't know. But either way, I really like it. It's going to be a great first manual vehicle for you if you're like a younger buyer, right? Heel toes in this, it's a little bit more tricky in this, because I'm not a huge fan of how far away the throttle pedal is placed, so that can be a bit annoying. Yeah, I can never really get that right when I try to heel toe in this. So there is that, but just doing regular blips of the throttle is great. And the clutch uptake is so predictable. That's a pretty wide band for the bite point, so you're never going to stall this, that's for sure. I do get a slight little whining sound coming from this manual transmission, but I don't know, it seems kind of natural to me. It doesn't feel like anything's wrong with this car. It feels just fine to me. So I just think that's a natural sound that this manual transmission makes. Brakes are just fine. Definitely brings this vehicle to a halt. It's a more linear brake pedal. It's not like you get on the brakes and just immediately lurches you forward. It's not like one of those. You have to get in on it, and it's very progressive and very predictable. In fact, this overall car is very predictable and easy to drive. The power is linear because it's naturally aspirated, no turbos, no nonsense. And I just wish it had a little bit more revs to it, because when you're driving this thing a little bit harder, you kind of wish that it would rev out a little bit higher. This is a little under 7,000 RPMs, so it's not bad, but it's just the way that this car is geared, I guess. You do also have a IMT mode, which is a button you can press and it'll rev match downshift for you automatically. You don't have to blip the throttle. So if this is a first manual car for you, you don't have to worry about it. It'll automatically blip that throttle for you on downshifts. I really commend Toyota for the changes that they made here. They have really improved this Corolla over the last few model years. Comfortable, easy to daily drive, non-fatiguing car. And as you're about to see in the interior segment, the seats are super comfortable. And I don't know, I just like how connected this car feels. Plus the Hyundai and Kia counterparts, the Elantra and the Forte, also excellent choices to consider. But I totally understand, if you're shopping for a Toyota product, you definitely want the peace of mind associated with that Toyota brand or the Honda brand, something like that. But the Elantra definitely tries to be that more comfortable and quiet, sedate driving experience, so I appreciate it for that reason. The Forte was a little bit more on the edgy side, but that was a 2019 Forte I checked out. Who knows what they've done with that car for 2022. It could be a little bit more softened up, I don't know. But if you love Toyotas, know that this is a great option. You're not doing yourself an injustice by getting it. With that established, let's go ahead and let's transition over into this interior segment now. All right, let's wrap up this interior real quick. Aside from the base models, you will be getting an 8-inch screen in just about all the Corolla trim levels. So that's what we have here, and you have yourself the Apple CarPlays, the Android Autos. We've seen this infotainment multiple times in other models, and it's a fine system, easy to use, reacts just fine. It is a touchscreen, so there you have it. Very simple to use. There's no learning curve with it, and you have physical buttons in here to interact with. And the HVAC control is completely separated from the screen. So another huge pro there. Large, legible, no problems. And just take a look at this interior space as a whole. A lot of companies, they like to forego all of the physical controls and switches so they can just put a big ass tablet screen in the middle, and they call that a minimalistic cabin space. Well, look at this. I mean, it's very minimal, yet it still has the physical controls that you need to make this car safe to interact with while you're driving, right? It's not distracting in any way. Well done there. You get other niceties here, like this leather-wrapped steering wheel with this SE model. I will say, when you go with a manual transmission like this, you will be foregoing a couple of options that you could have otherwise gotten if you went with the CVT transmission, but that's totally fine, don't care. Like there's a few safety features here that's missing, like the blind spot monitoring. Again, I don't care. This is basic transportation. I don't need this thing loaded up like an S-Class, and I don't want to pay obscene amounts of money for this. So the way you see this here is just fine for me. I would typically like to go with the hatchback because I like the way the hatchback looks. I think it's one of the coolest looking vehicles, coolest looking hatchbacks that you can possibly get. I liked it, but for whatever reason, there's no real manual options when you go with the SE Night Edition or the XSE on the Corolla hatch. Another thing to note about the hatch, it apparently has less interior space and less cargo capacity than the sedan, which is surprising to me. I guess at this point I would have to be forced into going with the sedan if the options are truly limited with the hatchback. But that's just what I saw on the Toyota website. Other things, you have your physical buttons on the steering wheel for your track selection and the volume controls. Again, very easy to use. You have automatic headlights, one touch up and down windows for all 4 windows. There are $50,000 to $60,000 vehicles that can't even get that right. So well done, Toyota, for providing that in this Corolla. And you also have automatic high beams as well. A lot of convenient little features here. No heated seats, but I don't really care because these are the cloth seats and they look pretty cool as well. It kind of reminds me of like a Porsche seat, the way they have that shaped, but it's completely manual seats. So, I mean, I guess it keeps the weight down, right? It is only a 3,000 pound vehicle. And speaking of weight, the way that they have these seats designed is it's designed to lower the center of gravity within the vehicle while also giving the driver good support and a non-fatiguing experience. And I would say that they have nailed it there in that department. I can definitely do long journeys in this, and again, it doesn't feel like it gets old. That's an advantage to a Toyota product, and why so many people keep them for 10-15 years. It's because Toyotas never feel old to drive. It's a strangely satisfying experience to pilot a Toyota product every day out on the road. Toyota owners, they keep coming back to these cars. I get why. There's a special unique signature that they exude out on the road, and they have a unique smell as well. I just thought I would throw that in there. And this overall cabin space does feel solid. It doesn't feel like a total tin can in here. Relatively well put together, no creaks and rattles, but again, this is pretty much a brand new car. I'm like the first journalist to even check out this model. It only has like 500 miles on it, so keep that in mind. You have some decent door pocket space. I can definitely put a water bottle in there, like a plastic one, and the audio system isn't trash either. This is the base 6-speaker version. I think if you got the CVT, you could have gotten the option of the 9-speaker JBL with 800 watts. Usually the JBL audio systems are super bass heavy. Maybe they've tuned it and tweaked it for this 2022 model year, but this 6-speaker isn't bad. It has decent clarity, decent bass. It's a little bit on the tinny side. You know, it's not like the best audio system, but it's not the worst thing I've ever heard. You have a very large space right here in the center console to put your phone, and I do have a iPhone 13 Pro Max, and it definitely fits in there, no problems. Your traction control off button and your IMT buttons kind of implemented in this shroud of piano black plastic, but it's only a little bit, so I don't really mind it too much. You have a little ring here that you can lift up. That's how you put it into the reverse. And you have a backup camera, but the lines don't move with the steering input. Electronic parking brake, kind of annoying. I really want to see physical handbrakes in little compact cars like this, but whatever. I do like how when you put it in either reverse or in first gear, the parking brake will automatically turn off, so that's pretty convenient. Also, another thing to note about this HVAC system, it's a newly designed HVAC. It's smaller, more compact, and more efficient, and it's smarter because you can have the defrost on. It'll kind of automatically turn on when the weather is cold out, so it'll defrost your windshield while still blowing hot air into the cabin space. So it kind of has like that twin circulation thing going on, where it'll still bring in some of the outside air while giving you the hot air for you, that recirculation system. And you have 2 cup holders here, a sunroof, a regular sized one, and the center armrest space isn't terrible. You do have a USB-C port in there, and a glove box, which is also a decent amount of space. Getting in and out of this car is easy. There's plenty of leg room both in the front and the rear. However, I will say the headroom isn't amazing, both in the front or the rear. So let's go ahead and let's talk about those rear seats. Like I mentioned, the leg room is fantastic. I'm 5'11", and there's a lot of toe room underneath the front seats, which helps. But yeah, the taller individuals will definitely be kind of brushing their head up against that ceiling there. The trunk space, very good for this class. I do think that the Civic trunk is a lot bigger. In fact, the Civic is actually the largest car in this class, that's for sure. But this certainly isn't bad. And there is a spare tire under the trunk, and you can also fold down these seats 60-40. It doesn't lay completely flat, but it should be more than enough practical for most people. I don't really think you should have an issue with it. So let's go ahead and conclude this review. There's one thing I forgot to talk about, and that was the fuel economy, which is rated to be around 30 in the city and like 40 on the highway. That's pretty accurate. That's another reason why you don't really need to go with the hybrid models per se, because the regular 2-liter 4-cylinder is the most powerful engine choice while being super efficient. So you have that going on, and it's an overall satisfactory experience to drive, even though it might not technically be the best on paper or even, physically, like the chassis dynamics and all that stuff. It's still the most communicative in its class, and drivers are going to appreciate that. Enjoy this manual transmission, the solid interior space with the easy technology, and a decent amount of practicality with probably the best reliability in its class as well. It's going to be the most tried and true vehicle. It's going to be a nice car to own down the road as a certified pre-owned option or just in general a used car. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching. Take care and goodbye.